Gee, I am so thrilled to have you back again. I know we tried this before and technology was not on our side, and I think that is just a huge lesson in entrepreneurship in general is just being able to adapt and go with the flow. So,
Yeah.
thank you so much for having such a positive attitude and just being a ray of sunshine.
My absolute pleasure. I get two for the price of one. How awesome is that?
That was my whole plan from the start. So, anyways, I saw that you're all about helping people communicate what they're about. So, I felt like it was only fitting for us to start with what you're all about. So, tell us a little bit more about G and Ray of Social.
So I have worked in marketing for 11-ish years now. And I worked mainly marketing agency side, always employed, and then became a freelancer 4 years ago. And I now create content for people such as graphics or content strategy. And my main aim is to help people get across who they are in their content and communicate what they have to offer.
Amazing, because I know that that is not always easy to do. General, just being able to communicate it verbally, but let alone actually translate that through a screen. How did that? I mean, obviously, you mentioned that you started on the agency side, but how did you think about going into freelancing and being able to specialize in that area?
So I actually got made redundant and was pushed into freelancing and never intended to be a freelancer ever in my life. I just thought I would always work in this marketing agency. I loved my job so much. And during the pandemic, I got put on furlough and then was made redundant eventually. They got rid of the whole social media team. And I don't think I would have ever taken that push had that not have happened. So I am glad it happened, but it was never really a path that I ever imagined or planned to take, really.
I can completely resonate with your experience. I didn't come from a marketing background, but like you, when the pandemic happened, I was also put on furlough and eventually made redundant from my job as well. And I don't think that eventually I would have entered into a life of entrepreneurism if it wasn't for that moment, because that happened to me once and then I had it happen a second time. So it was one of those things where you just kind of have to listen to what's being presented to you and run with it. So, how did you decide in that moment that you, instead of going back into something like the agency side, that you were going to start something of your own when that wasn't even really on your radar?
So during the time I was on furlough, I have a little girl. She was 4 at the time. So I was juggling being a mom and being home. My husband still worked. So I was trying to find something to do. Loved Canva. I've used Canva for so long. And during the pandemic, I was kind of just, I don't want to say faffing about in Canva, but I was just messing about and enjoying it and no real purpose. I wasn't, thinking it was going to be a big thing. I was selling highlight covers on Etsy just for something to do because I felt like being on furlough, I didn't have anything to keep me busy, during the pandemic. So I started doing that on Etsy. Then when I got made redundant, I said to my husband, I don't know what to do. Should I get another job? Should I just put my CV like everybody else? And it was actually a really great friend of mine called Gemma, who is also an entrepreneur and has a very successful business of her own. I've done some kind of work freelance ish for her in the past. And I remember messaging her and saying, I've been made redundant. Do you have anything, going on that I could do for you? Because we'd worked together before. And she just replied and said, when are you setting up your own business? So recoiled a little bit in horror, thinking there is no chance I can ever do that. I'm not smart enough. I'm not adult enough. There's just no chance. And it was because of Gemma. It was because of her message that I considered it for more than 5 seconds, talked out with my husband and decided, okay, let's see what this journey could be. And then Gemma became one of my first clients and her business. So it gave me that really strong push to do this, and to be successful right from the beginning is obviously a privilege, that not many people do have. But in my mind, all I wanted to do was make enough money to cover my mortgage payment. I didn't ever intend to turn it into a business or to really get past that first point. I just thought, if you can pay your mortgage, you're doing all right. And that's kind of how it started for me.
Well, you're definitely doing more than all right. And I have to give a shout out to Gemma. I don't know Gemma, but we all need a friend like Gemma because we
Absolutely.
need people in our lives that are going to see the potential in us and really push us out of our comfort zone because it's so easy, especially when you're going through something like being made redundant, to be able to kind of recoil back into what you already knew just because it was comfortable. And like you said, you really had never thought about entrepreneurship before until she just said, "When are you going to start your business?" So, but then you said something really interesting there. You said that you weren't smart enough or you didn't think you were smart enough and that you weren't adult enough. So clearly you had those questions and kind of those limiting beliefs in your mind, but you didn't let it stop you from actually taking action. So how did you recognize that those were really not true and move forward despite all of these different things that were popping up in your head?
Think when it comes to having that imposter syndrome, sometimes it can be a natural first reaction, but it's maybe not bigger than that. It might just be the first thing that we think of, I can't do this. And I think it was because it was responsibility. And that's hard, isn't it? When we have to take responsibility for our own journeys, our own actions, and how we're going to get somewhere. It's really difficult, to go, okay, let's just jump, let's just do it. But I have a little girl who's now 8, and I've always wanted to show her she can do absolutely anything. And I knew that I couldn't show her that if I wasn't going to live that. So there's no way I could. She was, toddling about the house. I couldn't kind of go, oh, I'm too scared to do it. I don't think I can. And then her see that as an example. I wanted her to know my mum is doing what she wants. She's going for it. And so could I, so I have to be that example. And I think that was the driving force, getting past that first point of, I don't think I can do this. I think I just always relied on being employed because I knew the wage was coming. At the end of the month, I was getting my paycheck, like you guys say. I was expecting that. And it really taught me that the security that we think we have when we're in an employed position is not security anyway. So I never wanted to be a freelancer or an entrepreneur because I couldn't handle not having that security. But actually, the secure situation I thought I had was not secure anyway because anything could happen. So I felt like once I'd started to live in the nothing's secure anyway, everything could happen, incorrect and wrong, then that gave me that confidence to go, well, what's the worst that could happen and just go for it, as well as wanting to be this good like role model for my little girl as well.
Yeah, who would have imagined that the entire world would have shut down? Like,
No.
that's nothing that any one of us could have imagined. And you can't plan for that, especially when you're really reliant on someone else's business. But what you can do is take control of that. And you mentioned the word responsibility. So you had a responsibility, obviously, to pay your mortgage, to take care of your daughter. And what I find really interesting there is that you said originally that you had the words that you said, I had a responsibility to pay my mortgage. And that was really just the goal of your business in general.
Mm.
So I think that's really important to highlight is that sometimes when people think that they have to start this business, they think that they have to have this massive success right out of the gate. But I think in reality, it's setting these little goals for ourselves, these little areas for us to be able to confidently check off the box to be able to keep us moving forward. And that's what you did. Okay. My first goal is I need to take care of my daughter and I need to pay our mortgage so that way we have a roof over our head. So, how long was it from the time that you decided that, okay, I'm going to go all in on this. I'm not going back to the marketing agency world. I'm going to be a freelancer full time. How long was it that you were able to until you were able to actually pay your mortgage without maybe the help of your husband? And
The first month, first month, I just was like, there is no other option. Like, I think having that pressure of if you don't pay your mortgage, you cannot survive this because you're unexpectedly without payment. You don't have a payment coming in at the end of the month. You have a little bit of like furlough, but not much. Your mortgage is due, and we didn't have savings. So it was a case of, right, I'm going to get a client. And, Gemma was my first client. And then I got other clients that month because I just went all in. and there wasn't any other option. And I think that's important, that, it's an important thing I try and still do 4 years later when I'm going for a big goal. I'm like, there is no other option. Like, this is the plan. There's no plan B. This is it. We're doing it. We're going for it.
Okay, okay. We have to break this down because obviously you shared how you acquired Gemma as a client, but you come from a marketing background. You didn't have a sales background from what it sounds like. And obviously there's some overlapping between the two of them, those different skill sets. But how did you acquire all enough clients to be able to pay your mortgage and more within the first month? Because that is very impressive.
So I went and Googled and YouTubed and found everything that I could that was free that taught me how to be a business owner. Straight off the bat, I Googled how to be a business owner because I had no idea. And of course, there was lots of things that I maybe didn't do correctly from the beginning, such as getting a great accountant or finding insurance. All of those things did come, in month 2 and 3 and things. But initially, I was like, okay, people are doing this online. I can see people are doing this. I see it on my Instagram. I am scrolling. People are making money. How are they doing it? Let me see. Let me see what it is that they are doing. Can I do that? Do I have that skill set? And I went to every webinar, anything that was free. I signed up to everybody's lead magnet, anything I could get my hands on that taught me how to be an entrepreneur or to have a business, how to get clients, all those things. I just hunkered down and was ultra focused on trying to learn as much as I could, which is what I did in the first month. And of course, I know social media marketing. So the two of those helped me get those clients, because straight away, I mean, I had clients and I had like 50 followers on Instagram. I just set it up. Most of those were people I knew, but this was enough for people to say, she's doing social media now. She's always done it. Give her a follow. And then it became that snowballing effect, very quickly.
Wow. And as you're talking, I'm just thinking about how much free content there is available today. And I know a lot of people that are all about educating themselves and getting access to this information that we have available at our fingertips literally these days because of internet and Google. But there's one thing to be able to learn the information, and there's another thing to be able to take what you've learned and applied it. And that's what I think you've done extremely well, is that you took advantage of all the information that was at your disposal, but you then took it to the next level and actually applied it very quickly too, because to do all of that in a month, and you mentioned second and third month, then you got your accountant, and then you got your insurance. Even to implement that within the 3 month span is very, very impressive. Sometimes people take years to be able to do that. So, what is it? I mean, obviously, we're going to go back to the word of responsibility. You've had responsibilities, but so do other people. So, what do you feel like set you apart from other people that are out there as far as how you're able to gain success so quickly?
Feel like I've come from a background that maybe wasn't given like a leg up or a hand up or hand me downs or whatever you want to call it. I didn't have necessarily a lot of money growing up and things like that. So I think I've always been able to find opportunities because I've had to growing up. But I think for me, I just didn't want the other option, which was to not have any money, have to rely on any man or any woman or anybody else, because I wanted to rely on myself. And I didn't want to fail. And I think there's a lot of failing that we do that is purely to do with us and what we do with our time and how we spend it and how we learn and things. And I didn't want to give myself an excuse. I think sometimes it's easy to say, oh well, this happened, or I wasn't able to do this. But actually, you can do anything. And I knew that I could do it. I just knew I had to really focus on it. So I guess there just wasn't another option. I didn't want to fail, I just wanted to do as much as I could to succeed.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. I was actually writing a blog post on that today, and reasons why people are afraid to get started. And fear of failure was number one. And then you know what number two is fear of success, because people are actually sometimes more afraid to succeed than they are to fail, because it's it's a change, whether for the good or the worse, like you determine what that is, but life is going to change no matter what when you decide to actually just go for it. And boy, how has your life changed since you decided to say yes and just go all in on yourself and your business?
It has completely done a complete change. I always want to say that there are lows of having your own business and being an entrepreneur. The highs that I want to talk about, and most people are interested, is, I have booked and paid for 10 holidays, 10 trips abroad since starting my business for me and my family. And that is my version of success. It's not everybody's, and that's absolutely fine. But to be able to get there, there has been longer nights, there's been trying to outsource things, there's been difficult clients, there's all of those that come with it. But that is how it's changed. I've gone from never being able to afford a holiday and my husband always paying for the holidays to just saying, I have booked this holiday, and my husband going, where are we going again? Because he has nothing to do with it. So that is a massive change for me. But the freedom, the flexibility, everything has just completely changed in my world. I would never go back to the how it was ever.
I'm so happy for you. And it's just amazing what can happen in a relatively short amount of time. This has only been 4 years, right?
Yeah.
Since you decided to go all in. So I do want to make sure that we're actually highlighting your specific business because you are just so knowledgeable about content and content strategy in general and really helping people communicate what they're all about. So let's go ahead and dive into a little bit more of your business and how you're really niching down with the expertise of Canva.
Yeah. So I obviously come from a social media marketing background. I've worked in social media. And when I say that, I mean general social, general marketing. So all platforms to everybody, everywhere, pretty much. And so when I first started my business, that's what I did because that's what I knew. I knew there was bits about management, there was bits about different platforms that just wasn't my thing. And I think I always was like, I'm going to not do this at some point because I don't like it. I would outsource bits of it. I would outsource like engagement, and little bitty things that took me too much time. And so it was 2 years into my business. I was on holiday and I had some full-time clients and just decided it wasn't working for me to have the full-time management clients because I love to travel, and having those travel moments with my child or being on a plane, I'm not available all the time, to be on call for management clients. And I think they do need that level of attention sometimes. So I was like, I can't scale this. I'm just going to be stuck doing this. And if there's only me, which I don't want it to be more than me and one other person, maybe, how can I scale it to that next level? So I decided I'm going to stop management. I'm going to stop offering that. I'm going to be super niched. I love Instagram. I've always used Instagram out of preference. I'm going to knuckle down and only offer Instagram content, strategy. I've lived in Canva. That was the only bit of the content creation. I would never outsource. That was the bit I would try and line up all my clients to have Canva days where I would sit in like my sweats and like have my mum bun up and I'd never come out of my room and just live in Canva, have like 10 cups of coffee or whatever on my office and bowls and all sorts and just go all in. And I was thinking, I like this bit. I love it when I know that's what I've got to do for that day. Why am I doing the other bits of my business that don't bring me joy, that don't light me up? And I am saying to my clients, I want you to create content with joy. That is a big thing. I'm a huge advocate. I always say, like, what can you create with more joy? So if I'm saying that to people, how can I live that truth if I don't enjoy it? If I am like, oh, I've got to do this, no, I want to be what I'm saying I'm going to be. So I made the decision 2 years in. I made a huge pivot in my business and I declared I'm only doing Canva graphics. That's what I'm going to do. And I think a couple of my clients were like, really? Like, is there money in that? Are you sure? Everyone uses Canva. And I'm like, people don't use Canva like I use Canva because there's only one of me. There's only one brain that I have. I have my opinion, that kind of thing. So I just went all in. Again, I had that super focused. I made all my content about Canva. I applied to be an official Canvassador. I immersed myself in the waters of Canva, learned everything I could about it that I didn't already know. And that is what I pivoted to. So now all I do is I create Canva graphics and I also create any Canva content like reels and things that you can do in Canva, as well as presentations, templates. If I can create it in Canva, I am your person. And that is what I do. And I love it. I come in my office and I'm like, yes, 60 graphics to do today. Come on, G, let's go for it. And I sit there till it's done. And I love my days in the office, genuinely.
I can just like feel all of the joy being exuded through the camera right now. Obviously, the people listening can't see you, but I can see you. And even if you're listening, you can just, you hear it in your voice how happy it makes you. And I'm not surprised because you have a very artistic flair about you in general, because you're not just a Canva creator, a Canva graphic creator. You're also an artist because you actually have this beautiful voice and a podcast of your own. So creativity is just something that you're like, you have a, like, you're really pulled to, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. My
Yeah.
family's always been creative. I grew up in a very musical, arty kind of environment. My dad's a musician. My mum was an arts and crafts instructor. So it was all over my house and all over my upbringing.
Well, and I think that's just a really big lesson to anyone listening to understand. Like, obviously, as a business owner, there's going to be a lot of different facets of the business that you are going to just have to do. But when you find something that really lights you up, to really pay attention to it, because that should be where you're really putting a lot of your energy into the business, because that's really where you're going to see the most success because you enjoy doing it. You're going to be okay showing up day after day because you have the responsibility to really report to, I guess. And it's just clear how much you love it, and you've been able to show up day after day doing 60 plus graphics a day. And I think in 2023 alone, I think I saw you created over 5,000 Canva graphics,
Yeah,
which
I think we're up to like 8,000 now. So we're doing good. 8,000
holy
so
smokes.
far.
But you did mention something earlier. You said, okay, when I decided to niche down, people were like thinking, but gee, anyone can access Canva. So, what makes you different other than you just bringing your personality into the mix and your expertise? Like, what can someone expect from working with G?
I think it's easy to open up Canva and say, oh, I can just use this template. But you're picking something. You haven't got somebody there with you saying, what is your personality? Does your brand look like? Like, what do you even like about yourself? And what I try and do is ask those questions as we're onboarding, before we create something so that I can nail it. I don't want you to just have a generic template. I want you to love what you are posting. Even if you're not creating it and you're just posting it or scheduling it, I want you to honestly look at it and just think, this is me in a graphic. And I don't think you can do that by just heading into Canva. You have to have a play around. You have to kind of find your design. You can't just open up Canva and have that without somebody else's input as well.
So, you're saying that every single person that works with you gets customized Canva templates that no one else on the internet will ever have.
Absolutely. Every Canva graphic is bespoke to them, their style, their branding, their fonts, their look, their personality, their feel. Yeah.
That's huge because I definitely am a templated user myself. And sometimes you stumble across people that have what you've been using, and it kind of diminishes, I guess, a little bit your product and doesn't really make you stand out. In a world where you're on Instagram and you're scrolling and scrolling, you really need to find something that's going to stop the scroll. So, do you have any secrets to be able to help people that are listening to be able to really think about how to stop the scroll with their graphics?
I think it depends on the type of content, of course, that you create. And again, it does depend on your personality, because if you are not very outspoken, you don't want to write something controversial that doesn't fit with you, then fine. But if you can take something and spin it in your way that's unique, it can stop the scroll. Things like, I've seen people, I mean, I know this is probably a bit of a cliche one that everyone's tried this trend, but I've seen a reel that says like reasons you will hate working with me, which people go, why? What do you mean? And then when you go onto the reel, they say, absolutely none, obviously, and that's their spin on it. And I think it's like taking a statement that people are used to seeing and just giving it a different point of view or making it just yours, I think can really help stop the scroll. I don't think that you need to be bold and bright and in your face. I think that you can be very simplistic, very neutral, and still have an impact. And that's a big misconception because people think we've got to be pointing and dancing and the loudest to take up space and be that attention grabbing thing. But I think that there's people for everybody. I attract a certain type of personality, certain types of businesses because I am that person. But equally, people who are a bit more calm than I appear, perhaps, are a bit more sane on social. They attract those types of people as well. And I don't think I can attract every single person out there. So I'm not trying to. And that's a big thing, isn't it? We always think we want to stop the scroll, but for who do you want to stop the scroll? Is it everybody? Because you probably will never do that. Or is it your people? And if it is your people, what do they like? What are they interested in? What is controversial for them, or what will stop the scroll for them? And you can narrow it down a little bit more.
And I think that's what you do so well is you're able to really understand all the different types of people your customers are trying to attract because when you're creating this content, it's not just for the people that you're looking to attract. You're having to understand all the different businesses and what they care about, their different unique personalities and the people that are in their ecosystem, let's say. So there's different ways that people can work with you. You have the audit, the strategy, content done for you, and content done with you. So if people are hearing all this stuff and saying, like, I have to learn more about G, how could they work with you with these four different things?
So the first thing I would always say to people is go and check out my Instagram because I am my most authentic, raw, unfiltered self there. So if you like that, you will see exactly who I am. You know, I show pretty much most parts of my life that are fine to show, obviously, on Instagram. So come and follow me on Instagram. And if you like that, if it fits with you, who you are, your business, you will know straight away. You know, you won't think, oh, I don't know if she's for me. Like I have been described sometimes as Marmite. You either like me or you don't like me. That's okay. I'm not for everybody. So go and check my Instagram out. The different services are dependent on your time and budget, really. If you want content done for you and you never want to look at content again, that's obviously something I can take on monthly. If you want to be closer to your business and your brand, then I can do it with you and we can brainstorm together and obviously have that expertise and consultation kind of method. But I guess it just depends on where you are and what you need as to which route you'd go down.
So it sounds like a maybe a consultation call might be like the best place to get started to be able to figure out where's the best plan of action for the partnership to take, essentially.
Exactly. Yeah.
And you had mentioned to check out your Instagram because that's where people can see you, get a little bit of taste of you. But speaking of a little bit of a taste of you, you also have a podcast called
I do.
Content with G. And I have to say that when we originally were connected for this podcast opportunity, I went over to your podcast and I pressed play. And immediately I said, I have to have this girl on the show because I loved your energy. You went into full song and
Yeah.
like obviously a podcast like it isn't a scroll, but immediately it caught my attention and I said, I don't even I mean, obviously I wanted to listen to more, but I didn't have to listen to any more to know that I wanted to talk with you. For people listening, obviously, if that didn't sell them enough on your podcast, what's your podcast all about for these listeners?
So, content tea with G, I want it to be like little voice notes from a friend. Say you're just on social and you think, I just need to have a rant or I just need to hear from a friend about this because I'm just a bit unsure. I designed the podcast episodes to be about 8 to 10 minutes. That's how long my voice notes are. They're quite long, to be honest. But I thought if you just had that, you could press play, you're walking the dog, you're going shopping, you're running an errand, whatever. And it's just that little bit of a nugget of information that can inspire, that can keep you going on the content path. There's loads of stuff on there that I always try and cover a broad range of marketing and business, anything to do with content. I did sing the theme tune because I couldn't find one I liked. So I just wrote it, sung it, and it's on there. So yes, it is me as well on the theme tune.
It's perfect. It's such a good like it encapsulates your personality so well, and it also gives people a little bit of a taste into what they're going to get. So, I think it's a great way to stand out in a busy world. So, I think what you're doing is really inspiring. And I know this is going to sound really corny, but obviously your company's called Ray of Social, but I just truly feel that you're just this ray of sunshine. You're even sitting in front of a yellow wall right now, and obviously the color of the sun. And so you just are someone that radiates positivity. You're someone that I personally just gravitate to, want to be around, and think that what you're doing is helping so many people elevate their businesses and really just create a life that is just more than anyone could have dreamed of. So, anyways, I could keep going on about you all day, G. I think you're the best. For those people outside of Instagram and your podcast, where could people find you in all the places?
So you can find me at Ray of Social at everything. That is my handle, my website. I'm everywhere as Ray of Social.
Perfect. Well, I always like to end with one piece of advice. So, if there is this woman out there that is listening today and really wants to start a business of their own, but really doesn't know how to take that first step, what kind of advice would you give her?
I would say just do it. I know that's already a tagline of somebody out there. Let's not go there. But I would say just do it. Just get it done. Because what happens if you don't do it and then a year from now you're thinking about doing it? Like why do you want to be in that same position? I always try and say there's a quote by Jim Rohn that says, "Move, you are not a tree." So if you don't like where you are, move. And I always try and come back to that and say, just do it, just move, just make one small step because it snowballs before you know it. You are not a tree. You are not rooted here. You can move. You can do it.
Well, that is so good. Jim Rohn knew what he was talking about, but I've never heard that specific quote before. But as you were talking about, I just couldn't help but think, what if? If you're if you're forward and looking back and thinking, like, what if? Like, what if I had just done that? Like, I personally never want to have that question to myself. Like, what if I had done this? What if I had done that? Like, just go for it. Because, like you said, you can always move yourself. You're not a tree. So just just do it, like Nike says.
That's the one. I didn't want to name drop, but there you go. That's the one.
Well, there we go. Anyways, G, thank you so much for bringing such positivity to today's conversation. I really enjoyed our conversation thoroughly.
Thank you so much for having me.